Welcome to Crime Scene, where we've been discussing the case of Nanette Ellis, a 41-year-old mother of two who was brutally murdered in her own home in 1984, so almost 40 years ago now. I've done some other videos that you can go through to catch up to where we are now. If you want to go and have a look, you know where they are. But in this video, I wanted to discuss the fact that in almost 40 years, nothing really new, no really new information has come up since it actually happened. And if you go and have a look and you research and you Google and all that sort of stuff, there really hasn't been a lot of new information that has come to light since it actually happened almost 40 years ago, like I said. And what I find interesting about this case is, even though there hasn't been a lot of new information over the last 40 years, is that the more I look at it and the more I read, which isn't even that much information, because there isn't a lot of information out there about it really, but the more I look into it, the more questions I have. And if you watch the first video, I already had a lot of questions. I already thought there was a lot of weird things and weird behaviors in people, and was questioning all that sort of stuff. But now that I continue to dig into it, I have even more questions, which is what I'm going to go into today. I'm going to lay it all out, say, okay, these are the questions that I have. If any of you know any of the answers, I'd really love to hear it, either in the comments, or if you want to stay private, then you can just email me. That's in the description box down there. So I'm going to put all the questions out there. Hopefully I'll get some answered. If I don't get any of them answered by you guys, I am going to keep digging until I get the answers for myself. If you watched my first video, you'll see that I actually thought that maybe it might be a woman who had done it. And the reason that I thought that was because of the fact that there was no sexual assault, and the vandalism on the car as well seemed like a very woman thing to do. I actually thought it might be a woman. And the fact too that she opened the door when she was really, really scared. I doubt that if you were that terrified that you've got a gun and a bat by the door and you've got a police escort, you're so scared that you're going to open the door to a man that you don't know. So for those three reasons, I thought it might be a woman. I have actually changed my position on that. After thinking about it for a little while, I have changed my opinion, and at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you my new theory. But let's get to the questions first. Do the police have DNA of the killer? I would guess that in such a brutal killing, especially where a knife's involved and blood makes the knife slippery and the hand slips down and you tend to cut yourself and get your own blood mixed into the mix, I would guess that there was some kind of DNA left at the scene. Even if it wasn't blood, I'm sure there was something else left there. And the fact that there's been no arrest in 40 years means that if the police did have DNA, they haven't matched it to somebody. Either that person has died or has slipped under the radar and hasn't done anything else wrong for the next 40 years, or it could be a multitude of reasons why this hasn't been matched up to somebody yet if they have DNA. The only other thing that I can think of as the reason why nobody's been arrested is because the police don't have any DNA, because they stuffed up the crime scene and contaminated it so much that they weren't able to either get it, or they did have it and they contaminated it later. I mean, you hear this all the time, right? But I'm not sure. I would like to know if they have DNA now, if they had it to begin with, if they did have it to begin with, what happened to it? If they don't have DNA, why not? Who thought it was a good idea to let Craig into the crime scene? Now, we know that when he came back, not the first time, because the first time he came back, there was only his brother and the neighbour there, and he tried to go around the back, and the neighbour pulled him back and wouldn't let him go around the back. Now, this is Craig's own statement. So then he said that he jumped in his car and he drove off. And then he rang the house and the police were there by that time, and they said to come back. So when he's actually come back the second time, the police are there already. And he even says there were police everywhere. So I'm guessing there was quite a few police there. I would hope so, since it's a murder, but you never know. But he said there were police everywhere. So police all over the place. And for some reason, he has said, I need to go into the house for something. And at least one police officer, at least one, could have been more, but at least one police officer has said, yeah, sure, just go in the back door, right where your mother's body is, step over her, step over the blood, go and get what you need, mate. All right, I want to know the name of that officer who thought that was a good idea. And also, if he was fired, because this seems like a fireable offence from the police force to let a civilian walk into a crime scene that you've just started to investigate. It seems crazy to me, but I want to know who thought that this was a good idea. What was so important that Craig even needed to go into the house? This one is boggling my mind because I can't think of a single thing I would need to get out of the house then and there. You know, I've just come back because the police have told me to come back, so I've come back and I'm like, well, I need to get blah from the house. And the police officer has thought it was so important that he should let him in through a crime scene to get what he needed. What was it that he needed to get? I'm trying to think. It can't be his keys because he was driving his car. He's already got his keys. And does it really matter if he has his keys anyway? Because he's not coming back to the house anytime soon. It's a crime scene. So what could he possibly need? His smokes? He can buy smokes. I can't think of anything in there that you so need so badly that you couldn't just go down the shop and get it anyway. So that's my next question. What was it that he went back into the house for? Why did he so desperately need to get into the house? Because also that brings up another question, because you're walking past your mother's body, you're 18 years old, and you're walking past your mother's body and her blood because you need something from inside the house. I don't care what it is that I needed from inside the house. It could be something that was actually really important. I can't imagine going past and looking at my mother's body to be able to go and get that item. Even if I had to go back in the house and it was so important, I had to go and get this right now, and the police officer said, yeah, just go through there, that door, I would have said, do you mind if I go through the front door? I really don't want to walk that way. Okay? I can't imagine why anybody would think it was so important. What was it that he wanted so badly? Like I said, I'm not saying Craig had anything to do with this, and he has been ruled out by police. So, of course, I'm not saying anything about Craig. I'm saying this about the police officer, because at that point in time, the police officer had no idea whether Craig was the killer or not. And if Craig had happened to be the killer, if he had killed his mother, then you've just let him go inside and tamper with evidence. I can't even understand how this happens in this day and age. And I know it's 1984, but still, in that day and age, how do you let somebody who you have no idea about, I mean, you don't know this kid. You don't even know if he actually is Nanette's son or that he actually does live there. You don't know that. You know nothing about this kid. He said that he needs to get something from the house, and you've gone, okay, walk through the crime scene. Go in and do whatever you want. This seems nuts to me. This is either total stupidity and incompetence or corruption. Okay, it has to be one of the two. There's no way about it. You're either a total moron, and you probably shouldn't be working as a police officer, or there's something else going on. You can't be that stupid. Did Nanette not use the gun or the bat because she loved the person who was attacking her? I've been thinking about this a lot lately because it does bother me that somebody who was so terrified, and let's face it, she was, because she had police escort, she had a gun and a bat by the door. She was scared. Okay, now someone who was so scared, when she actually is attacked, which is something that she was probably anticipating would happen, because you don't get a police escort and you don't get weapons and you don't get friends staying over your house because you're not anticipating an attack. Okay, you're anticipating that something bad may happen to you. So that's going to put you on edge over somebody who has just been randomly attacked in their home. Now, when you're going to be randomly attacked in your home, I don't expect that you're going to be in the best frame of mind to think, oh, I'm being attacked. I better go to the front door and grab my gun. You know, I do understand that when somebody is going through a traumatic experience, and let's face it, a life-threatening one, not just life-threatening, I mean, it ended her life, so a little bit more than life-threatening. But when you're going through such an ordeal, I know that you're not going to be, you know, right on the ball and think, oh, I'm going to go and do this. So I do understand that. But then again, I do think that because she was going for all that stuff beforehand and she obviously anticipated that something bad might happen to her, that might put her in a little bit more of a protective mind, a self-protective mind, than what would have happened if she wasn't anticipating it or wasn't expecting it at all. So it kind of did bother me a bit, like that she didn't go and get the gun or the bat when she actually was being attacked. I mean, she's put it there because she thought she was going to be attacked, but when the time came and she actually was being attacked, she hasn't gone through it at all. In fact, she made a detour. Instead of going like a straight shot from the hallway down to the front door where the weapons were, she's actually gone down the hallway and then done a left to go out the back door, which I find strange because most people would run for the front door anyway, whether there was weapons or not. They'd run for the front door so they can run out into the street and get help. You know, I can imagine being stabbed, help, you know. You're not going to go into the backyard. No one's out there. No one's going to hear you scream or making noise. I know her throat was cut. She wasn't able to scream, but I'm just trying to think of the mindset that you'd have when you're being attacked. And like I said, knowing that it's quite possible that you will be attacked. So it did bother me that she kind of made a detour out the back door instead of going straight shot down to get a weapon and fight back. And I thought, well, you know, maybe people do strange things when they're in frightening moments, of course. You're not always going to make the right decision. That could be one thing. But then, I don't even know what I was watching. I was watching a movie the other day, and it just occurred to me, like I was trying to think of my own being in that situation myself. What would I do? And yes, I know before anyone says anything, I know that I don't know because I haven't been stabbed in the neck. Okay, so I don't know exactly what I'll do. I never try to think about what I would actually do, because usually when I say, oh, you know what, if this situation happened, I would so do this, and that situation does happen, I usually do the opposite. So I know how this goes, but it was making me think, and it was making me think about if somebody I loved attacked me, would I put up the same kind of fight than if a stranger attacked me? Okay, if a stranger attacked me, I can imagine that I would put up a fight. I would grab anything available. I would smash it on their head. I would try to be as nasty as possible. You know, scratch, punch, kick, pull hair, you know, whatever you have to do to try to hurt the person that's attacking me. That's what I would, I think that I would do that. I hope that I would do that. I think, though, that the main point that I'm trying to make is that if a stranger attacked me, I would not give one shit if I hurt them. So I would be able to go just total gung-ho, you know, total just grab anything, try to hurt them as much as I could, really try to do some damage to this person who's attacking me. And then I thought, what if it was somebody that I loved? What if it was one of my children who was attacking me? What if it was somebody, you know, like a boyfriend or my mother or something like that? And when I say this, I'm not saying it was her children. I'm not accusing anybody, okay? I'm just saying, what if it was, I say children because they're the people that I love. So just say my child attacked me. Would I don't know that I would put up the same sort of fight if my child was attacking me than if it was a stranger. Because I would be, I mean, would I be, you know, I mean, I'm fighting for my life. maybe I would give him a good smack in the head. I'm not sure. But part of me thinks that even though my child was attacking me, I would not have that instinct to be able to hurt him back. Maybe I would do a little bit of pushing and shoving, trying to save my life. But I do wonder if I would really have it in me to really hurt my child no matter what they were doing to me. And I was thinking about that a lot the other day, and I was thinking about Nanette's situation, and I thought, is that the reason why she didn't go for the weapons? Is that why she tried to run instead? Is that why... Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of a fight she put up, but I know that she didn't go and shoot them. I know she didn't go hit them with a bat. And it made me wonder why. It made me wonder, is this somebody who, even though they were attacking her, she did not want to hurt back? Who were the friends that stayed with Nanette in the lead up to her death, in the week that she was being stalked? This question I don't think is that important really, but it does still, it's still something that I want to know. Are they the same people that were supposed to rock up that night? Because like I said, who are these people? Don't know anything about them, don't know their names. Apparently, if they were going to come and take her out at 6 o'clock and rocked up at her house, they would have come in right as she was being killed, or when the police were there. But nobody seems to know who these people were. I mean, I'm sure somebody does. If anybody out there knows who they were, let me know. But I just wonder who these people were and why they stopped spending the night. How was the ex-husband and the kids ruled out as suspects? This is just another one of those questions I want to know, just because it's like, well, why? How? I'm sure it's an easy answer. But, Max Ellis, the ex-husband, and the kids, Craig and Greg, were all ruled out as suspects, according to one article that I read. But they didn't say how they ruled them out. I mean, did they have alibis? What's going on there? I mean, I know Greg was at the neighbours at the time, so that's a pretty good alibi, watching TV with people. But doesn't mean they didn't do it before he went. Once again, not suggesting that he did. I'm just saying that, who knows? I want to know why the police thought that none of these three people were suspects. Who put the radio on? Now, Greg said that when he came home, the radio was on and it was up loud. And he didn't think anything of it because Nanette was a little bit deaf in one ear, so she obviously normally listened to the radio loud. So this wasn't anything that really stuck out to him. But it does stick out to me because I am a little deaf in one ear, and I never listen to music loud if I'm in a situation where I feel like something might happen to me. If I'm home alone, I don't listen to the music loud. If I'm in a situation where I'm actually scared for my life, I would never, ever listen to the radio. There is just no way. I mean, if you think that someone's been vandalizing your car while it is in your carport, while it's on your property, and someone's been on your property and they've been damaging your car, and you're so scared that you've got a gun by the door, I tell you right now, you are not listening to the radio at all. Well, that's what I would think anyway. Maybe she's listening to the radio, but there's no way she's listening to it loud. You're there and you're by yourself and you're getting changed to go out. I just don't see her putting on the radio after all this stuff has been happening to her. So then if she didn't put it on, then who did? Because if it was the murderer, he would have had to put it on before he started attacking her. I'm guessing the whole reason for putting it on is so that nobody would hear her. And if that's the case, you would have had to put it on before you started your attack. And that would have notified her that you were there. This doesn't make sense. This does not make sense. The only other way is if you stopped halfway through to turn on the radio. That would make no sense either, because you've already cut her throat. You know she's not screaming. You wouldn't need to drown out her screams, so you wouldn't go and do that. And besides, you're attacking someone. Who stops an attack to go put a radio on and then comes back and keeps attacking? Nobody. So that means if Nanette didn't put it on, which I'm pretty sure she wouldn't have, being a half-deaf person myself, I doubt she would have put on a radio when she was so scared. Let's face it, when you're that scared that you've got weapons by the door and you've got police escorts, you're jumpy. You're going to be looking over your shoulder. You're going to be looking around everywhere. Who is this person? You've got no idea who's going to attack you. The last thing you're going to do is walk in and go, you know what? I'm going to listen to the music really loud. Why not? I don't need to hear if anything's coming. Yeah, bullshit, right? I don't believe she put the radio on. So if she didn't put the radio on and the killer didn't put it on during the murder, then it had to have been the killer, and it had to have been before he attacked. And if he put the radio on before he attacked, then she would have known it was there. And if it was a stranger, she would have done something differently. None of this makes sense. That just leads me to believe that it was someone that she knew. Someone that she was close enough with, that she's in the house. She knows that they're there, obviously. They've turned the radio on and she hasn't thought a thing about it because this is just someone who's close to her. Did Greg come home at the same time every time he went to the neighbour's house? This is another question I have, because if this was somebody that was known to Nanette and they knew that Greg went to the neighbours, then they would know in what sort of time frame they had until he came home. Did the police find the murder weapon, and was there any signs of cleanup at the house? I was wondering this because I thought maybe that the killer cleaned up inside the house, because there had to have been a fair bit of blood on him, and if he had himself covered in blood and he had the murder weapon in his hand and he went running down the street, I'm sure at that time of night, in the middle of daylight savings, somebody would have seen that and would have reported that by now. So that's why I'm wondering, well, why did nobody see some lunatic covered in blood running down the street? Did he clean up inside the house? Are there any signs that he cleaned up in the bathroom or the kitchen sink? Where did he take the murder weapon? And that also makes me think maybe he was parked in the house, well, not in the house, but on the property. Maybe his car was on the property, and that way when he killed her, he just got straight into his car and left. And in that way, he could get away without anybody seeing him. But for that to happen, for him to have his car parked in the driveway or parked on the property, then Nanette has to have known him. She would know if a car pulled up in the driveway. She'd be listening out for it. Like I said, scared, you listen, you're jumpy, you're looking over your shoulder. She would know if a car pulled in to her house. Why was Nanette's body cremated 6 days after her murder? I don't know what the normal time frame is for something like this, but I think cremating somebody only 6 days after they were murdered is probably not usual. I would think not. I would think that they'd want to have the body on hand for a little while longer. This I don't know if this is a fact. I was told this recently, that it was 6 days after her murder that she was cremated. So if it's true, I do think that that's rather bizarre to want to cremate somebody that quickly. Who took the Facebook page down? There was a Facebook page dedicated to Nanette called Justice for Nanette May Ellis, and it was taken down. And I don't know why, because it's unsolved. Why would anyone want to take it down? Why? I don't know who put it up in the first place. I'm assuming it's a family member or a friend, but I certainly don't know who took it down. And if you're a family member and there's a Facebook page dedicated to your family member who was brutally slain, and it's unsolved, and then someone takes it down, for one, I'd be asking why. Why are you taking down my family members, my murdered family members' page? And if they told me for whatever reason it was, or they didn't tell me at all, I would put one up myself. Why has nobody else put one up? Who called off the cops? I don't know who called them off. Like, was it Nanette who said to the police, oh, thank you very much, but I don't need you anymore, I don't think anything's going to happen? Was it the police that said, okay, well, we can't keep escorting you forever, we're going to have to go and do other stuff now, we think you'll be all right? Who was it who decided that? Well, I'd like to know who decided to put the police on this detail in the first place, but I really, really want to know who decided when it was time that was enough, and why would they decide that she was no longer in danger and decide to go, okay, we're not going to be taking you to work anymore or escorting you to work anymore. Okay, I want to know who decided to call them off, because it's just a little bit of a coincidence that the police are driving her, well, not driving her, but escorting her to and from work all week. And on, Friday morning, even the Friday morning, they had escorted her to work. But then they thought, no, we won't bother with it this afternoon. We're not going to bother escorting her back this afternoon. And then that's when she gets killed, like immediately when she gets home, like right after they would have escorted her home, that's when she gets murdered. Don't you think that this is like amazingly coincidental? Why did they think that it was okay now? This is something I've been wondering, because I can't find this in my notes, but I think that Craig must have said it on the podcast that he was on. But I think he said something like he was home fixing his car and Nanette had called from work. I'm pretty sure he said that she had rung him, not the other way around, but I could be wrong. My memory could be playing tricks on me. I'm pretty sure that he said that she had called during the day, asked if everything was okay, and had told him that everything was going to be okay now. Based on what? What happened that Nanette thought, I so desperately need a police escort, I so desperately need weapons, I so desperately need friends to stay with me, to protect me, I need all this stuff because I am in so much danger, something bad is happening to me. And then one day goes to work and says, nope, I don't need that anymore. I'm not worried about anything anymore. I feel like I am pretty safe. I don't need anybody. This just seems odd to me. I want to know, something happened. She just didn't go to work on Friday and go, oh, yep, you know what? Nothing's happened. My car hasn't been vandalized all week. She seemed, I don't know her. I don't know her intelligence level. But from what other people have said, I don't think she was an idiot. Surely you can look and go, well, yeah, my car hasn't been vandalized all week, but I have had a police escort. If police were following me around, I'd feel pretty safe too. Maybe. But I wouldn't think that anyone was going to attack me while they were around. I would, however, think that that person might wait until they leave and then attack me. And so the police not being there anymore would have made me more nervous, not less. So what happened? What was said to her, or what happened that she thought everything was going to be okay now? Of course, we've only got Craig's word on this. Nobody else heard this. This was something that was said to him on the phone, according to him. So I'm just taking his word on this, that she said that everything was going to be okay. But why did he think everything was going to be okay? Who knew that Greg was going to the neighbours that afternoon? Was it a spur of the moment thing that he just decided, or did he tell people at school that he was going over to the neighbours? Did he tell the neighbours that he was going over there, and maybe the neighbours mentioned it to somebody else? There are a million ways that information could have been passed on to somebody very innocently, who then used it for nefarious purposes. I know that Craig was home when Greg got home. So did Greg say to Craig that he was going to the neighbours, and then Craig's, innocently mentioned it to somebody else? Because, like I said, I think it's obviously somebody in their circle, and if Nanette knew this person, then the boys might have known this person too. So they may have accidentally made the murderer aware that Greg wasn't going to be there in that time period. Because we've mentioned before, Greg has come home from school, and then he's gone over to the neighbours, and it's a very, very small time frame before he's come back and found Nanette. It's not a huge time frame that we're talking about here. By the time that Nanette comes home at around about 5:15, and then the time that Greg comes back at 6 o'clock. There's a 45-minute window there. And I'm just wondering if whoever did it not only knew that there would be no police escorting her, but also knew that Greg wouldn't be in the house. So this is why I changed my mind on the it was a woman angle. Now, like I said, the reason why I thought it may be a woman to begin with was the fact that there was no sexual assault, that vandalism seemed like a real chick thing to do, and that whoever was there, obviously Nanette did not fear them or did not feel unsafe in their company. So I thought it might be a woman. And this is why I've changed my mind. Because even though there was no sexual assault, that does not necessarily mean that it wasn't a man. It could have been somebody who was an ex who really wasn't there for the sexual reason. Or it could be somebody who was very close to her. Or it could be somebody who was, I don't know, a family member. You might not rape your family member. So there's just a ton of reasons where, it couldn't be a man and still have no sexual assault. Also, too, the vandalism. I know that I said that it was a real chick thing to do. It doesn't rule out that a man did it because there are some really immature men around. But also, too, I thought, doesn't vandalism sound like a real kid thing to do? Like, that's something that a kid would do, really. But it could not necessarily be a kid. It could be someone who is just very immature and kid-like. I mean, I think we all know people in their 30s and 40s who are very immature and kid-like. But, someone like that anyway is what I'm trying to say. So it's not necessarily a woman just because it was vandalism to the car. It could just be somebody, a very immature man. Or it could be a kid. Who knows? And the last reason, the feeling safe around the person, doesn't have to be a woman for her to feel safe. It could be someone that she knew. I don't think that she would have felt safe if a male stranger knocked on her door. She'd be like, no, I don't think I'm having any of this. But it could be a man that she was close to. It could be somebody that she just knew and just never would suspect would do anything like this either. So they're the reasons why I changed my mind that it would be a woman. I'm actually thinking now it was just somebody, a male who was close to her and maybe a little bit immature. And the reason why I don't think it's a stalker is because I actually went up to the house. I drove for like 4 hours to go and see the house because I wanted to get a kind of feel for what the street looked like mainly and where her house was positioned on the street. Now, I didn't take any video footage because there was a car in the driveway and I didn't want to be intrusive. I actually did knock on the door. I was going to ask them if the laundry was off of the kitchen because remember we looked at the pictures and we saw how the kitchen was and how the house was laid out but didn't actually show the laundry. And it's kind of like a good guess that the laundry might be off the kitchen door, but I didn't know. So I was going to ask them. But they never answered the door, even though I think someone was there. So I didn't want to take photos, I didn't want to take video footage because it just seemed really intrusive. And I know that their house is already on Google Maps, blah, 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 that sort of thing. But it's just the fact that their car was kind of in there. And I felt a little bit, just intrusive. I didn't want to do that and splash their car all over the internet. So I didn't take any footage or photos. But I was standing in the street And when you look at those photos on Google Maps, it looks like a small street. You have no idea. It's a much smaller street. It looks so much smaller in real life than in the pictures on Google Maps. The same with the house. With the house, when you look at it on Google Maps, you see this very small area. Like, her house is not very far off the road at all. But in Google Maps, you see this small area. And I think I said in one of the videos, when the police said that she was unloading stuff from her car, and I said, really, somebody just came in and just step. Basically, it's a hop, skip, and a jump to the front door. There's not a lot of room there at all. And I was just standing there and I was looking at the car, and their car had been parked in the driveway, but it wasn't under the carport, but it was pretty much right in front of the carport, and it was pretty much almost touching the footpath. So really, when you just look at it, it's like a car length of space. And I was looking at their car, and I was imagining Nanette's car kind of there, and I was looking around at the neighbours and everything else, and I just thought, how is anyone vandalising this car in this space and not being seen? It just seemed absolutely impossible to me. I mean, at one stage, Nanette was home, and I know she was like a bit deaf in one ear, so she may not have heard anything. But even when I was standing there, a neighbour came out and started talking to me. And I just thought, how does this happen and nobody sees anything? How is someone vandalising her car and no one sees anything? It's so open. I mean, I know there's some trees there and stuff like that, but it really is quite open. And the street is small. I'm telling you right now, there is no way in hell that somebody was sitting in their car and watching Nanette's house and not being seen. There was no stalker. There's no way anyone was stalking her house. There's just no way. I don't believe it. And if it comes out in the future and we find out who did it and all the story comes spilling out and he says, oh yeah, I was stalking her for the whole week. I was sitting out the front in my car or down the street in my car, I will be gobsmacked, because I think that if I was stalking anyone in that house and I was even sitting up the street, right up the street, like not right up the street, but just a little bit down from her house is actually another street that goes around the corner. So you could park on that street and you could still see her house. You wouldn't be able to see the front door. So you wouldn't be able to see anybody coming and going. And I don't think from that point you'd be able to see anyone backing out of her driveway either. But you can see the other end of the house. But it's not an optimum spot for anybody who's going to stalk somebody. And I just don't believe at all for 1 second that nobody would have thought, who is this guy sitting out there all the time? The houses are really close together. It's open, it's small, it's kind of cramped, really, especially that side street. But I just don't think at all that a stalker would have been there and nobody knows, especially when the police were escorting her to and from work, as if they're not going to see this guy sitting in a car watching her house. Anyway, sorry if I've rambled on too much, but that is the reason why I no longer think it was a woman, and that's the reason why I definitely don't think it was a stalker. I think this was definitely somebody that was known to Nanette. I think it was somebody that she cared about a lot, and that's why she didn't go for the weapons, and that's also why nobody saw a blood-covered lunatic running down the street. Nobody saw any vandalism occurring. Nobody saw a stalker in the street. I think that's because her killer was a little bit closer to home. And also, just on a side note before I go, when I went down to look at the house and I saw where her car would have been parked and I saw where the front door was, and that bit where the police think that he may have gained entry because she was going back and forth, getting stuff out of the car. Yeah, no way. Nah, don't believe it even happened. I don't think that's what happened at all. When you look at the house and you actually see how close it is and stuff like that, if she did not see or hear somebody going in the front door, then she's blind. She's absolutely blind. I truly believe that she would have seen somebody going in there, and I don't even care if she was turned around for a couple of minutes getting the stuff out of her car. She would have seen somebody go in there. It's very, very open. So I'm going to leave it there. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. And if you know the answers to any of these questions, or if you have any questions of your own, or if you have answers to questions that I haven't even asked, please put them in the comments or email me on the email address that's in the description box. Have a great Easter, guys.